Hello again. And as we meet on our screens or on the phone or on the written page, we continue to live our lives with a certain amount of uncertainty and some fear. I have spoken with some of you in recent days, and I know for some it is difficult as we've been safely cocooned in our homes and we're now able to start to put our heads above the parapet. The fact is that we do need to gradually push ourselves into some form of community living again. But I know there is still so much uncertainty and confusion around just how and when it will be truly safe to do this. And with the knowledge that the virus has not been yet eradicated, it is understandable this is a very anxious time for many. There have been difficult times throughout the history of humanity, and each has brought with it major challenges around how life is to be lived and continued. Throughout the Bible, we see instances of where God has had to intervene and sometimes take drastic measure to get his people back on track and to be living in the way that he intended and ultimately the best way that we can. And that's how we should live for our own sakes and for the good of our communities. Julian is now going to read to you a passage of such a time where God urges his people to heed his call to move forward in a positive way, working together with him and not independent of him.
Hello, this reading is from Isaiah chapter 55, starting at verse 6. Seek the Lord while he may be found, call on him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake their ways, and the unrighteous their thoughts. Let them turn to the Lord, and he will have mercy on them, and to our God, for he will freely pardon. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. As the rain and the snow come down from heaven and do not return to it without watering the earth and making it bud and flourish, so that it yields seed for the sower and bread for the eater, so is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. You will go out in joy and be led forth in peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song before you, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. Instead of the thorn bush will grow the juniper, and instead of briars the myrtle will grow. This will be for the Lord's renown, for an everlasting sign that will endure forever. This is the word of the Lord.
On reading many commentaries on this passage, I came across a single sentence that really stood out for me. It said, a recurring theme running through the book of Isaiah is that of paradise regained. And those of you who know me will know that I always like to try and stick to the lectionary. And this is because I do believe in God's having gone before us and that we are then a part of something that is so much bigger. I find time after time that the things that were set a long time ago and even the lectionary readings are relevant for the here and now, and the dates that they come up so often are so relevant for the time in which we preach on them. I do not think that we are part of something that is just chance and random. At the start of this lockdown period and this series of reflections that we've been doing online, I found myself convinced that the current times are not random or an accident of nature. I firmly believe that God is the creator of the universe. And I also firmly believe that our Creator loves his creation and he's not going to sit idly by whilst humanity effectively destroys it. A recurring theme in Isaiah is that of paradise regained. To regain something, it had to exist in the first place. And now this passage today urges to seek the Lord. I'm very interested in finding out how people have been spending their time in lockdown, and I'm been so inspired by those who've been using this time to learn and to grow. There's been so much talk about normality, and at the very beginning of this time and in my first reflection, I suggested that normality, in the way that we had made it, was anything but normal in the greater scheme of things, in creation as God intended. Paradise regained. What a lovely thought. Were you living in paradise before this virus? Was our earth a paradise? As we seek to re-emerge from this time and move forward with life, we will find we have been forced from what we considered normality. The concern is that humankind will endeavour to regain what it had before and the paradise that it created for itself, that uses up and abuses the resources that have been freely given for the whole of the earth to flourish. And that is for the whole of creation, not just the people. A phrase I heard early on in this present time is that we are guests on this earth, and we would do well to remember that. And whilst we were created to live here and have some dominion over the land, we are still merely stewards of something that ultimately belongs to the one who created it. The passage today says, "Seek the Lord while he may still be found." And the word of the day was a stark reminder that clearly implies that the Lord could make himself unreachable. There is a passage in Amos where the prophet talks of a famine of God's word. And the thought that one day God could make himself unavailable is quite terrifying for those of us who know him and love him and seek to build our lives on him. The current crisis we have been living through and are seeking to emerge from is an example of the fact that we do not have ultimate control over our environment, and that if we do not protect and care for it, we will suffer the consequences. Now Jesus, he's told us he will never leave us nor forsake us, and that is a fact. But we are also subject to the effects of how we choose to live our lives. Jesus, God incarnate, will never leave us nor forsake us, but we will live with the consequences of our choices. Adam and Eve in the story of creation may or may not have literally existed, but whatever your belief in the text of the Bible as literal or allegorical, the message is just the same. We live with the repercussions of our actions. God has created a paradise for us all to share with the rest of the natural world, and we choose to live in it God's way or suffer the consequences. What have you been doing with your time in the past 3 to 4 months? Have you been waiting for it just to blow over so you can carry on as before? Have you been examining your life and how you live it? Have you found yourself wanting to change anything, and more importantly, have you sought to make those changes? The passage tells us today that we should seek the Lord, forsake any bad practices, and return to the way we were intended to live. God, our Creator, and the Creator that all surrounds us and out into eternity, has thoughts and ways that are higher and mightier than ours. And the Creator of the original paradise that was earth as created in the beginning will accomplish what he intended for his creation, and he will succeed in it. We are merely guests of this world and co-inhabitants with the rest of God's creation. The passage is one of re-emergence for the people of its time, and I believe that it is no coincidence that it appears in the lectionary as we seek to re-emerge today. If we have learned and are determined to move forward in conjunction with the world around us as it was created to be, we can expect to re-emerge in joy and be led in peace, and the rest of creation, which has been carrying on with the business of existing in God's realm, in the paradise that he created, can welcome us back. Note that the rest of creation has not needed to isolate and has been given breathing space to start to reclaim some of the paradise that is rightly the gift to us all, not just the humans. I invite you to join me in a chorus of joy and thankfulness for all that God has given us. And as we step out again into the beauty of his creation, may we never forget that we are merely guests of the host, not the host himself. You shall go out with joy and be led forth in peace, and the mountains and the hills shall break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and you'll go out with joy. You shall go out with joy and be led forth in peace, and the mountains and the hills shall break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall clap their hands, and the trees of the field shall